Hi, this is a quick video tutorial on how to install this BLE660C Bluetooth module, which will add Bluetooth functionality to your Leopold FC660 keyboard. The Bluetooth module here from Yang is available on Taobao, where you can get it at its MSRP, which I believe is about $70 US. I looked into this. It costs about $30 to $40 to get this shipped if you're able to have somebody ship it from China. Otherwise, you could probably use one of the proxy services for about the same combined price. I'd say it's about $120, $130 depending on where you're shipping it to. I went specifically for the USB-C version, which is kind of nice because the original FC660C, of course, only has a mini USB port, and so this kind of adds some modern conveniences. The Bluetooth module itself here has a power button, which you can use to turn on and off the battery functionality. It actually doesn't really control anything about the Bluetooth component. The feature is actually very simple. There's no pairing process. You just open up your device and choose the Bluetooth device. As long as it's not paired to something, it'll appear discoverable. The only other component you also need is, of course, a lithium polymer battery. This one I bought on Amazon. I believe Yang's Taobao listing actually does have a battery, although I did choose mine to not come with the battery because I thought that I'd be able to get one here. In retrospect, I actually think if you can find the battery online with this module, you should go for that. The reason being is that I actually had a hard time finding the exact battery that could fit physically, in terms of dimension, physically inside the FC660C. This module, I'll go into detail once I open this up and show you guys how this battery actually fits in. But it's actually probably a bit smaller, 1200 milliamps, than probably the battery that comes with the Yang listing. But anyway, this will work out. Batteries are relatively cheap on Amazon. You can definitely upgrade this later on. So let's get started. I've gone ahead and actually already removed the outer cover for this keyboard. The keyboard disassembly process is relatively straightforward. You just have to use a screw to undo this, remove this one screw, and then pop out these clips. I highly recommend using the iFixit Essential Toolkit, which comes with some plastic jimmies and some guitar picks to use to separate this. I'll be honest, I think that separating the cover from this keyboard is honestly probably the hardest step of this whole entire process. So just be patient with it. Sometimes you feel like you're going to be breaking it, but just carefully and diligently pry open those clips. Okay, so I've gone ahead and already separated that clip, those covers, as I said. I'll flip it over here and show you guys what's underneath. The cable here is, of course, really delicate. We want to be careful not to pull this too tight. I'm having it rested on some of these clips over here while I go ahead and unscrew this board. Okay, so the board comes out like this, really simple, just those two screws, and we can remove this module, or the entire keyboard and the original daughter board, that is. Okay, I'll briefly mention here about what I was talking about earlier with the battery. So I'm putting the case right side up now. The battery that the original module does get sold with is, I believe, has the dimensions of 463998, which actually fits this area right here perfectly. So just to give some context, of course, the module will eventually sit right here, and the battery will sit right in this area. I couldn't find the exact same dimensions that they were using in the original listing. I found that this one on Amazon, what I was browsing to, at least at the time of this video, was the one that fit the size and had largest capacity. Now, the thing to note about this is this is my first time as well looking at batteries. The dimensions are actually encoded in the number here. So 50 means 5.0 millimeters by 33. 5.0 millimeters being thick, 33 millimeters tall, and then 65 millimeters wide, this dimension, and it's encoded like that. I found that basically what I had to do was take a quick measurement of the lowest point of these clips that are located inside the keyboard. Now remember, keep in mind the keyboard is slanted, so these clips right here kind of indicate how tall the battery can be, and I measured it to be 5 millimeters. So that's why I went with one with 50 here. You can basically go for any battery that is less than 50. So you might see some that are 49, 46, whatever. I saw some people on Reddit go for ones that were 65, I think 6.5 millimeters. I'm actually not exactly sure how that might fit. I think if you actually placed it maybe closer to the top edge, you might get a little bit more clearance. Again, batteries are relatively easy to swap out. If you decide to get the 65 one, it probably would work, but the one I'm using for this video today is going to be the 5 millimeter thickness battery. So again, this is the 1200 milliamp one. I've seen some of them on Amazon for 1800 milliamps, 2500 milliamps, I think were some of the other ones out there. But again, keep in mind the dimensions. As long as you don't want to make any modifications, of course, to the plastic interior here. Yeah, that's the biggest thing with this modification in terms of buying the right battery size. So this part is relatively simple. I'm going to first go ahead and separate the cable. So this part is a little tricky. Of course, we don't want to damage it. I would recommend using your fingernails to kind of pry each side of the cable just gently. Kind of rock it back and forth. Don't use any excessive force on it. We don't want to rip anything out like that. So what I do is I just rocked it back and forth, just prying a little bit of pressure on both sides to get that out. Okay, so now this is the board. We're going to do the same process, putting this back in. Now, this is a big tip for anybody doing this for the first time. I noticed that you can't really, you'll stick this cable back into the slot here, and it might feel like it's kind of already at its end, but of course we need this to go all the way in. I recommend holding your thumb and kind of rocking it back and forth to really get it all the way seated properly. I made a mistake of actually leaving it just plugged in where I initially thought it was actually already in, and I was troubleshooting for about an hour figuring out why the connection wasn't working. I was able to detect it, but the keys weren't being detected, and then sometimes it was flaky. So that was something to note here. Make sure that this is fully seated all the way in. Okay, so now that we do have that ribbon cable plugged in, what we're going to do is make sure that this switch is turned off. Now it's weird. So the switch is actually off when the button is pressed in, and it's on when it's pressed out. So make sure that it's pressed in, so it's off. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this switch, I believe, according to the instructions in the manual here, is essentially an electrical switch for this battery. It doesn't control anything with the Bluetooth functionality. You can still plug in your keyboard using USB-C or USB in wired mode, and it'll work normally as a normal keyboard. This is just to enable the turn on the battery functionality. Anyway, so make sure that that is turned off. Okay, I'd be very careful about this connection. It's a little bit fragile. The first time I plugged this, and actually kind of bent this socket up. So I would hold down this socket with two hands. It's a little bit harder to show in this video, but hold it down with one hand here, and then use your other hand to actually plug it in. So we will rest this right here. we'll go ahead and reassemble. Well, the thing I want to make sure here is obviously you want to make sure that USB-C hole port is lined up with the pre-existing hole for the original mini USB. The tolerance is a little tight, or the clearance is a little tight on that port. I'll show you guys in just a bit, right after I screw this in. Okay, make sure this is all good. Okay, I'm gonna gently place this down here and show you guys. So this USB-C port right here, some people online did mention that they had to sort of file out the port in order to have the right clearance to plug in a cable. In my experience, I think that this cable, a USB port, this USB port as it is, even without doing any sanding, seems to work fine. So this is just a normal USB-C port. You have to get in real straight, and it's not as it's not as simple. It's not as not nearly as smooth as a normal USB-C port, but it does work even without filing it. So for those of you who may not want to do any destructive modifications to your keyboard, just know that this does work. It just feels a little tighter than probably what a normal USB-C port would feel like, and it doesn't go all the way because the port is inset in this case. Yeah. Even if you do have to file it out, I don't think it's very much material to remove at all. It's almost there. So before we finally seal this all up, I did want to mention, of course, the battery in here. You can just place right here in this area. I would just recommend using something like double-sided tape, really simple, nothing fancy, to just keep it seated right there. But I won't do that yet, since I want to just make sure that this is tested and working. So yeah, after this is put in place, we can flip it over, and you'll see that the button is now where the dip switches originally were, and we'll press it to turn it on. Now there's the Bluetooth light will start blinking. I already had it paired originally before, so it's not blinking anymore, but this light will start blinking when you're setting it up for the first time. And what you can do is just open it up in your Bluetooth menu on your computer or your phone or tablet or whatever. It'll show up as BLE660C. Select it. There's no pairing process. It just works. After that, you can go ahead and use it. Like I mentioned, the USB-C port on the back does work as a charge port and and also as the wired mode. So if you want to use this keyboard without the battery, if the batteries run out, or if you just want to use it without Bluetooth, turned off like that, you can plug in your USB-C port here into your computer, and it works as is. Great. So the rest of the steps of this process here I won't show, but again, just use some double-sided tape to fix the battery to the board so it doesn't slide around. And of course, simply just replace the cover back on, add the one screw over there, and you're all good to go. So that is the quick tutorial on how to make a modification for your Leopold FC660 to add Bluetooth. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.